Welcome guys, how are you all doing? So today we have brought another manhwa recap for you, and trust me, this one is insane. A guy buys a haunted manor for basically pocket change, turns into a secret system that could kill him in seconds. He builds a sect from scratch, recruits disciples nobody else wanted, and just when everyone thinks he's done, his own blood family drags him into a plagiarism trial in front of the entire Murim world. Everyone's shocked when he flips the whole courtroom against them, but that's not even the twist, because what happens next changes everything. Watch the full recap now. My world tore apart that night. Mother, I screamed into the dark sky, watching helplessly as our peaceful estate burned around me. My father just ordered the attackers to leave and told me to stop making a fuss, and made sure word of it never left the estate. Through my tears, I watched him declare our clan would seek no revenge, and warn me not to act recklessly for some greater cause. I shouted, no. How could he call himself a man and not even avenge his own wife? I sobbed that he wasn't even human. The heavy doors of my home creaked shut behind me, and I walked into the night done with the Beckley clan. I was weak right then, but I swore I'd grow strong enough that no one could ever look down on me again. I swore to found my own sect, gather people under me, and hunt down everyone involved in my mother's death. I was going to make them pay, even if it took decades. 12 years later, the estate of the man who ruined my life was burning, and he begged me to wait, stammering that he'd been wrong. He told me to just say what I wanted and he'd grant it. I raised my blood-stained blade, smiling coldly, and told him there was, in fact, something I wanted. Spiky Psycho grinned, thinking he'd bought his way out. Your life, I answered cheerfully. His smile vanished. He growled that I wasn't being funny. I smirked. If he wouldn't give it up willingly, I'd just take it myself. He lost it completely, screaming threats about tearing me apart until my corpse was unrecognizable. I dodged his strike easily, telling him his mouth was as filthy as his face. I slammed him back into the burning debris. Dust and fire erupted on impact. You know that feeling when even taking out the trash is exhausting? He lunged from the smoke one last time, screaming he'd send my head to the Murim Alliance. I tightened my grip on the hilt, and with one clean swing, I ended the threat for good. I stood before the blazing gates, feeling a weight finally lift off my shoulders. The wooden doors creaked open as I stepped away from the fire. Moyoung Hyun was waiting with a scroll, looking sharp in that uniform. My eyes wandered for a second, not gonna lie. Face still smudged with soot. I thanked her cheerfully for waiting. She handed me the document, politely suggesting I wipe my face first. I brushed it off. We stood together as the estate burned to the ground behind us. I wiped my cheek and unrolled the scroll to check the contents. This was either the end of my journey or the beginning of one. I tossed the scroll back to her and announced my retirement from the Alliance. She asked if I was heading back to my hometown. I told her I'd already gotten everything I wanted here. She asked if she could visit me someday. I told her to come find me if she ever got bored to death. She pointed out she'd need to know where to find me first. Sometime later, I rode a small boat through a mountain gorge, water splashing gently around me. It had been a long, grueling road to this one peaceful moment. I thought back on leaving my clan to join the Murim Alliance, and how, over 12 years, my own martial arts carried me all the way to captain. But at last, it was time to build my own sect. I clutched my coin pouch, thrilled. The perfect property had gone up for sale right when I had the money. I chuckled to myself on the boat, ignoring the nervous look the boatman Yang kept giving me. I pointed at the sky and laughed like a maniac, feeling like the heavens themselves were aligning for me. Yang nervously asked if I had good news. I apologized for getting carried away. I told him I was on my way to finalize the manor purchase, my lifelong dream. He muttered something about the only manor for sale being the haunted one. I sharply asked what he was whispering about. He quickly changed the subject and wished my sect safety. I thanked him, thinking nothing could possibly go wrong. I stepped off the boat, laughing at the start of my new life. Then I looked up and my smile dropped. I stared at the rundown, gloomy estate in disbelief while Yang awkwardly tried to hype it up. I grabbed him by the collar, furious at the scam, but he panicked and begged me to just look around first. I walked through the filthy courtyard, pointing out it hadn't been maintained in years. He promised to explain after the tour. He bragged about the 45 rooms and 5 training halls. And when I asked who'd originally owned a place with so many training grounds, he nervously claimed it was just an old property. He insisted that with a few repairs, it would be perfect. I sighed, rubbing my temples, and demanded to know the real issue with the place. He sweated bullets before dropping the bomb. Every previous owner had died of sudden heart failure. All of them, the very night they bought it. Even exorcists couldn't shake its haunted reputation. I glared at him for selling me a death trap. He panicked and dropped the price to 4 silver ingots. I burst out laughing, threw an arm around him, and said he should have led with that discount. He praised my bravery as the former captain and happily handed over the bamboo deed tube. I grabbed the deed, suddenly feeling a strange energy radiating from it. A glowing blue system prompt flashed in my vision, confirming I'd received the deed. I flinched. When Yuryang asked what was wrong, I brushed it off. He gave me a peace sign, joking that if I survived the night, I should come find him. I watched him scurry away like a coward, leaving me alone with my cheap, supposedly deadly mansion. I let out a heavy sigh and adjusted my pack. Then I threw my hands up and cheered. Who cares about ghosts when you finally own property? I slapped a wooden pillar, laughing. All I needed now were disciples, until a cloud of ancient dust collapsed onto my head, reminding me I needed to clean up first. I spent the next few hours scrubbing the wooden floors at lightning speed. I dusted the rafters, swatting away decades of thick cobwebs. Wiping down the pillars, I smiled proudly at the progress. Bucket in hand, I finally made my way up the steps toward the main hall. I threw the double doors open against the setting sun, ready to finish the job. Sitting right in the middle of the empty hall was a single, pristine sword on a wooden stand. I approached it slowly, wondering if the previous owner had left it behind in a hurry. I grabbed the scabbard, thinking this beautiful weapon could fetch a decent price. A blinding white light flashed across the room. The hall transformed, glowing with strange, high-tech blue lines, and I just stood there confused. Another glowing prompt appeared, rating me a Tussing-grade martial artist. Before I could even process the floating text, I heard a sharp swoosh from behind. I barely dodged as an invisible force sliced through the air right past my face. I drew the old sword and smashed whatever attacked me into the ground with a loud crash. The system casually announced it was adjusting the test difficulty, and I finally realized this deadly automated trap was what gave all those previous owners heart failure. Classic real estate scam. I looked up and spotted a sleek, metallic cannon barrel emerging from the ceiling. The glowing text flared up again, announcing an extreme difficulty test. I just wanted to sweep the floors. I gripped my sword tightly. If this haunted house wanted to test me, I'd take it head on. The trial of martial prowess had begun. The ceiling cannon fired in a blinding flash. I charged forward, deflecting a barrage of energy strikes and shouting for the system to show me what it had. I landed gracefully, pointing my sword and daring it to continue. Then I paused, noticing something off about the attack pattern. I threw myself backward just in time to dodge another massive strike, tumbling across the floor. The attacks halted right in front of me. I'd stepped outside its targeting range. I caught my breath. My current sword was nearly destroyed from the impacts. Then, to my surprise, another sword materialized right in front of me on the floor. I grabbed it with a smirk, realizing there was some flexibility in the rules here. I studied the room's layout, putting the pieces together. If the system wasn't attacking outside this specific zone, it meant it was fiercely protecting something at the far end of the hall. So I sprinted straight back into the danger zone. I leaped into the air as metal pillars shot up from the floor with heavy clanking sounds. I widened my eyes as they locked onto me midair. They unleashed a storm of high-speed projectiles from every angle. I twisted my body, slashing through the air to deflect the iron orbs right before they crushed me. Clang after clang, I blocked the assault, pushing my reflexes to the limit. A clean strike shattered one of the orbs midair into pieces. I roared, forcing my way through the barrage. I swung my blade with everything I had, breaking right through their defenses. My eyes glowed with energy as I channeled my inner ki, unleashing a wave of destructive force across the hall. Smoke and debris filled the room. Using my flowing moon stride, I surged forward, wrapped in crackling energy. I shifted into Phantom Field, leaving a glowing trail as I closed the distance instantly. Then I executed my signature crescent slash. The energy wave tore through the room with a thunderous explosion, cleanly slicing through the main targeting pillar and breaking it apart. I landed hard, shattering one of the remaining floating orbs with my hilt. I hit the ground panting, a blue aura radiating off my back. I snapped my head up. There were still a few steel orbs hovering above me. Then the weapon in my hand turned to black ash and disintegrated. I had no idea what was happening. The prompts chimed in cheerfully, announcing that the test had concluded. As the glowing lines faded, I looked around. The ruined manor had miraculously restored itself, brand new. I collapsed to the floor, exhausted, as it announced I'd passed the trial. It stated all manor functions were now unlocked, and a beautifully crafted sword descended from the ceiling toward me. I grabbed the glowing blue blade with a grin. After almost dying, it was the least this house could do. The system demanded I name the manor to finish the setup. I smiled. That name had already been decided years ago. I stood tall and declared, I shall name this sect the Righteous Heavens Sect. The system registered the name instantly in bold letters. A glowing insignia branded itself onto the back of my hand. The prompt announced, from now on, initializing the sect system. I stared at the floating holographic menus popping up everywhere, speechless. My real estate investment had just turned into a video game. My patience was running thin as I stormed into the local tea house. Footsteps heavy, I slammed my hands on the table, shouting for Young. He looked up from his ledger, smiling, and asked if everything was fine through the night. I grabbed him by the collar, yelling that he'd conveniently forgotten to mention a literal ghost would show up. I pointed angrily at the glowing system prompt hovering right next to me. Yang just looked terrified and confused. He asked if I'd hit my head, insisting there was nothing there. I dropped him back into his seat with a sigh. He nervously muttered that if things got too dangerous, he'd take the manor back. I shut that down. I needed that manor to prepare for my sect establishment ceremony. I told him I needed about 20 sets of uniforms made and asked for his recommendations. He explained the local fabric shops were impossible right now, all of them desperately chasing a collaboration with the Yellow Dragon Hall. I sipped my tea, recalling that the Yellow Dragon Hall had supplied textiles to the imperial family for generations. With that kind of backing, even the greatest clans in Murim tread carefully around their hallmaster. Yang slurped his tea loudly and rudely pointed out that with my budget, there was no way I could afford their materials anyway. Then a thought hit me. I asked how rumors about me buying the haunted manor had spread so fast when I'd only signed the contract yesterday. I turned to glare at him, putting the pieces together. He started sweating, hands trembling, and laughed nervously that gossip travels faster than the wind. My eyes practically glowed with rage as I cornered him, demanding to know if he'd spread the rumor. He tried to spin it as free publicity. He threw up a shaky thumbs up, stammering that since I was still alive, it proved the place wasn't dangerous. I snapped, shouting it was entirely his fault for selling me that haunted trap in the first place. Later that day, I tried visiting the local merchants with my most friendly smile. A shopkeeper slammed his doors right in my face, refusing to do business with me. Another merchant threw a wooden bowl at my head, yelling that I was an unlucky bastard for bringing my haunted reputation to his stall. I walked away with a sigh, the whole street whispering about me behind my back. The rumor mill in this era moves faster than my internet connection back home. A loud, aggressive shout broke my thoughts. I turned to see a thug grabbing a young boy, Seiwu, by his clothes. An old man rushed to intervene, yelling that the thugs had deceived the boy, stealing his money instead of curing his sister. The thug slapped the boy across the face, laughing that his sister was a hopeless case anyway. The old man recognized them as the White Sword Sect. Their leader, Bandana Bully, coldly ordered his man to handle the old man quietly. The subordinate drew his blade with a sharp scrape, threatening the old man for interfering. Not on my watch. I surged forward in a blur, slamming my knee into the thug's face with a devastating crunch. He crashed into the dirt, out cold. Bandana Bully yelled in shock, demanding to know who I was. I stepped in front of the old man and the boy, mentioning that my name didn't carry much weight these days, but introduced myself anyway. Beckley Woon, sect leader of the Righteous Heavens Sect. Bandana Bully leaped at me, screaming about my arrogance for daring to make an enemy of the White Sword Sect. I sidestepped his painfully predictable attack. With a sharp hiss, I countered with a precise strike. He hit the ground screaming. I advised him it's never wise to judge someone by the fame of their sect alone, especially when you have no idea what your opponent is truly capable of. He scrambled up, swinging his wooden staff in wild desperation. I dodged his clumsy, frantic swings with ease. Ignoring his threats, I landed a brutal punch to his face. The impact knocked him clean off his feet. He finally recognized me, the former captain who bought the haunted manor. I slapped my forehead, groaning at how far these stupid rumors had spread. I pointed my sword at him, telling him I was already in a terrible mood because his gossip had ruined my uniform shopping. I challenged him to stop running his mouth and face me directly if he wanted a real fight. I provoked him further with a simple, mocking hand gesture. He called me a fool and charged with a heavy strike. I parried his blow easily, sending debris flying across the street. He leaped high into the air for one last, desperate attack. I evaded his sweeping blade cleanly and smashed my fist into his jaw, followed immediately by a kick to his stomach. He crashed into the ground, groaning in agony. He lay there defeated, gasping for air as the fight drained out of him. I coldly told him if he ever wanted to try again, he could visit the Righteous Heaven Sect anytime. I glared down at him, advising him to leave quietly before things got uglier. He limped away, shouting empty threats. Seiwu nervously approached, asking if I was all right. He mentioned that his sister was incredibly skilled at sewing and could make the uniforms I needed. Then he dropped to his knees, begging me to save her life. I backed up nervously, telling him I wasn't a doctor. Just then, the system pinged with a new trade opportunity. It flagged Seiwu as a valuable third-grade target. I grinned to myself. A third grade was rare. I crouched down and asked him to explain the situation. He explained their parents had died last year, leaving just the two of them. They survived on her sewing, but recently she'd caught a strange illness that froze her hands and feet solid. The old man stepped up, introducing himself as a fabric shop owner who used to hire her. Worried after she suddenly vanished, Xiaowu led the way back to their rundown home on the edge of town. The place looked like a strong breeze would knock it over. Seiwu burst inside, yelling that he'd brought a warrior who catches ghosts. I laughed awkwardly, muttering that I definitely wasn't an exorcist, but when I looked inside, I saw someone's bare hands resting directly inside a blazing fire. My eyes widened in disbelief. There she was, Seowa. She sat calmly, hands practically engulfed in the flames. The fire wasn't burning her at all. Her condition was worse than I'd expected. The system said the external heat and her freezing limbs were clashing violently. I suspected a severe side effect of yin energy. I introduced myself. Even covered in dirt and wearing rags, she was striking. I asked if the heat hurt her. She calmly explained that without it, she'd suffer severe frostbite. The old man rushed in, relieved to finally find her, apologizing for not checking on her sooner. I stepped forward and asked politely to check her pulse. She hesitated a second but agreed, warning me to be quick about it. The moment I grabbed her hand, a freezing aura washed over me. A blue system light pulsed between our hands. The analysis confirmed my fears. She was absorbing far too much yin energy. At this rate, it would be fatal. Sowa looked at me, confused by the glowing energy radiating from my touch. The system warned that excessive yin energy had invaded her entire body. I closed my eyes, focusing on the intensity of the cold. I nodded slowly, telling her I finally understood the root of the problem. She had a rare constitution known as the extreme yin body, I explained. I mentioned that the legendary Sword Empress had the exact same constitution. Sowa looked amazed at the high-profile comparison. I told her it was normally a huge blessing for a martial artist, but since she couldn't control it, her yang energy was running dry. I looked her in the eye and gave her the harsh truth. If this continued, she'd die within 3 months. Sawu burst into tears, accusing me of lying just like the scammer thugs. Even the old man asked if regular medicine would help. I shook my head. It would only delay the inevitable. The only real fix was finding a way to restore her yang energy steadily over time. Right on cue, the system offered a solution, a potion called Essence Water that would boost recovery for good. It was built to fully restore health and inner energy for official sect members. The quest was simple: recruit my first disciple to get the reward. I smirked. This was the perfect setup. Cure her illness, gain a talented disciple. 2 birds, 1 stone. I slammed my hands on my knees and looked right at her, full of confidence. I held out my hand. Siwa, become my disciple. She looked at me like I'd lost my mind, holding her brother tightly in confusion. I gave her a reassuring smile and told her to just trust me this once. She hesitated, pointing out she'd never learned an ounce of martial arts. She said softly that Murim is supposedly full of righteous, chivalrous people, but deep down, they only cared about saving their own skin. Exactly how her parents got caught up in their conflicts and died. She stared at me, clearly wondering if I was just another selfish martial artist looking to use her. I pointed out gently that her hand was frostbitten. I smiled and said I didn't care about the difficulty as long as it meant I could cure her. Her blue eyes widened at my sincerity. I could tell she was starting to believe I was genuinely different from the rest. She let out a soft breath, finally lowering her guard. She decided to put her faith in me one last time. She grabbed my hand, trusting me with her life. Sitting there in the firelight, I couldn't help but notice. Peasant clothes or not, she was gorgeous. The system declared the quest complete, rewarding me with 50 essence water. The freezing yin energy bit into my hand, a minor injury. I activated the essence water to kick off the recovery. Sowa stared at her hand in disbelief as warmth finally returned to her skin. The system confirmed her health and inner energy recovery rate had gone up. I smiled, feeling my own energy pushing back the deadly frost. A swirling aura of spirit energy enveloped us both. I felt yang energy flowing steadily through her meridians again. The ice retreated entirely as the system finalized her recovery. She sat by the fire, staring at her healed hands and feet in awe. Sowu threw his arms around her, crying tears of joy, while the old man asked if I'd really used advanced energy arts to heal her. I sat back casually as the old man suddenly burst into a booming, hearty laugh. He slapped his knee, praising my skills and declaring he finally understood why the Murim Alliance leader valued me so highly. I narrowed my eyes. How did this random fabric merchant know the Alliance leader? He smiled knowingly, realizing he'd forgotten to properly introduce himself. A draconic aura flared around him as he revealed his true identity, Shayan Gemyong, master of the Yellow Dragon Hall. Meanwhile, over at the White Sword Sect, the thugs I'd beaten up were begging their sect leader on their knees, apologizing for being humiliated by some new sect. With a sickening sickening crunch. Their leader crushed the guy's hand with his cane, asked if it hurt, then added coldly it was nothing compared to the humiliation he'd face. He ordered them all dragged to the punishment chamber while they begged for mercy. The thug screamed in terror, crying out for his sect leader. His fate was already sealed. So Yewang, the White Sword sect leader, muttered my name, flashing a sinister grin as he promised to host a real welcome party for me. He chuckled, saying he was dying to see what kind of person I was. Careful what you wish for, buddy. I sat by the fire staring at the old man in shock. Was he really the Yellow Dragon Hall master? Qin Gamyang stroked his beard and laughed, admitting he'd noticed I was no ordinary person either. Sowa and Seiwu bowed quickly, apologizing for not recognizing him. He brushed it off with a hearty laugh, then his expression sharpened and he dropped the real question. What do you think about joining the Yellow Dragon Hall? He looked right at me, promising to fully back whatever I wanted to do. A system prompt confirmed I'd found a new business partner. First grade. This old man wasn't just rich. His word carried weight in both orthodox and unorthodox Murim. It was a genuinely incredible opportunity, but I turned him down with a polite smile. I explained I'd just taken in my first disciple. I wasn't giving up on building my own future. The old man crossed his arms, his aura flaring, and asked if I really dared decline his generous offer. I met his gaze and proposed we do business instead. I'd bring fame befitting the Yellow Dragon Hall. He growled, calling it arrogance to repay his friendliness with insults. You want to gift us fame? I smiled calmly and declared that within 10 years, I'd build a sect equal to the greatest orthodox and unorthodox factions. He called the claim ridiculous. I hadn't even hosted an establishment ceremony yet, then burst into a thunderous laugh, admitting I was great at coming up with absurd statements. He leaned in, eyes glowing, and said the fame he'd promised wasn't for me. I asked if he was kidding right now. He stroked his beard thoughtfully, then sighed, and agreed to send his own disciple to my sect to decide if our deal would go through. I gave him a stern, serious look. A dragon aura roared behind me as I warned him. If his sect ever disappointed me, he'd answer for it. He bowed slightly, acknowledging my confidence. Then he turned and shouted for his men to bring in the silk. A whole caravan of porters marched into my courtyard carrying heavy loads. I grinned greedily, asking how much all this was worth. He told me to consider it a contract fee and not to turn him down. I thanked him, noting how skilled his men were to sneak up that close without me sensing them. As Gamyang rode off in his carriage, he chuckled to himself about my audacity. He knocked on the wood, calling out to the driver. He ordered him to take the carriage straight to the Evil Path Alliance. He mentioned, casually, that he needed to grab a drink with their leader since he was already out. No big deal, just drinking with the evil boss. The next morning, the sun rose over our restored estate. I spun around, showing off the sleek Righteous Heavens robe the system had given me. It boosted my charm and dignity, not complaining. Sowa and Seiwu watched in awe as I swished my sleeves, mentioning how comfortable the fabric was. The system confirmed it was an expertly crafted piece of clothing. A glowing prompt appeared, asking me to pick a reward. I stroked my chin over the options: an advanced sorcery counter, a miracle medicine, or an exclusive trait unlock. The first two were tempting, but I tapped the screen and chose the exclusive traits. A new message said I could now see the hidden traits of my sect's disciples. I looked over at Siowa and pulled up her status. Her profile showed strong latent traits: diligence, adversity, responsibility, but a warning popped up. Not enough internal energy to unlock them yet. I frowned. She needed to raise her grade first? That's not fair. Fine, I just have to make her stronger myself and open them manually. I smiled and told her it was time to start training. She flinched in surprise. She looked down nervously, wondering if she could actually manage learning martial arts. She thought about how I'd reached out to save her, terrified of messing it up. I reached my hand out and told her it was fine. Any mistakes I could fix. Her face lit up with determination. She pumped her fists, eager to know what she'd learn first. I announced the most legendary, grueling foundation of all martial arts, the horseback riding pose. She deflated instantly, holding the squat and complaining she thought she'd be learning something real. I leaned on my wooden sword and told her bluntly she wasn't fit enough yet. Stamina first. When she asked nervously how long she had to hold it, I said, "An hour. Go." She strained visibly, trembling and sweating under the pressure. She looked up, asking again if she could really learn martial arts like this. I reassured her. With an absolute yin physique, internal energy just built up naturally in her body. As long as she formed a dantian, she'd be fine. The system notified me my creepiness level had gone up from smiling at her so proudly. Very funny, system. Heavy footsteps echoed near our front gates. A messenger ran up and shoved a letter against my chest, shouting it was from the White Sword Sect. Sewu pointed angrily. He recognized one of the thugs from yesterday. I narrowed my eyes and unrolled the scroll to see what they wanted. I read it, muttering, They were holding a duel competition and demanding we attend. The system reminded me their sect leader was infamous for his arrogance and usually used these competitions to bully weaker sects. They just met us and they're already scheming. The messenger panicked under my glare, waving his hands and stammering that it was all a big misunderstanding. I smirked, rolling up the scroll. I'm sure he's just trying to embarrass us. This is gonna be fun. I turned to Siowa, excited. This was our chance to make a name for the sect. Soa looked terrified, asking if we'd be all right since it was just the two of us. She was afraid she'd be a burden. I tapped my wooden sword against my shoulder and dropped the twist. What are you talking about? You're attending the competition alone, Sewa. She froze, brain clearly short-circuiting, quietly repeating the word alone, before letting out a shriek of pure horror. Looks like my first disciples got a long week ahead of her. Night had fallen over the sect, and Sewa collapsed onto the wooden floor, exhausted. She whined that her stamina was shot and asked if the horse stance all day was a bit much. She stared up at the sky, crying that there were only 2 weeks left until her big duel. She scrambled backwards, shouting that I was basically forcing her to pick a fight out there. Sewa peeked out, calling for me, then flinched when I yelped in pain. Inside my room, I was cursing. Sewing was way harder than I expected. The system mocked me for the 23rd needle prick, and I yelled at it to shut up. Soa listened quietly from the hallway as I muttered to myself. I knew she was probably doubting her training by now, so I really wanted to finish these robes. I held up the newly stitched uniform, hoping she'd like it. A soft smile crossed her face before she slid the door shut and crept away. A system notification chimed. Siwa's responsibility trait was about to bloom. I blinked, wondering why it was happening all of a sudden. The day of the White Sword Sect's duel finally arrived. The streets were packed. Walking through the bustling town, I overheard some rival thugs whispering, questioning why their sect leader was even hosting this event since word of our clash had already spread. One of them sneered that their leader meant to use this event to make an example of anyone who stood against them. The thugs spotted us, assuming we'd forgotten our place. We ignored them and walked straight to the registration desk. The clerk hastily handed us the forms, clearly mesmerized by Siwa. She looked stunning in her new robes, and the clerk clearly agreed. Then the thug noticed the messy stitching on her clothes. Siwa covered her mouth to hide a laugh. My pride took a hit. I coughed and asked if she actually liked the outfit. She beamed, admitting the stitching was messy, but she loved it anyway. Heavy boots echoed across the courtyard. Soye Wang, the White Sword Sect leader, stepped onto the high platform to open the event. He gave a hollow speech about nurturing young martial artists and unveiled a small box with a flourish. The crowd gasped as he revealed the lesser blue pill. My system scanned instantly, a rare Wudang elixir that solidifies chi flow. The crowd erupted, praising his generosity. He announced the winner would take home this prize. As the brackets were finalized, tension filled the air. I caught him glaring down at us from the balcony, muttering that we were fools. He flashed his men a vicious grin, swearing he'd make sure we never stood up to them again. He ordered them to show us the gap in power, and his minions eagerly agreed. Soon it was time for the third area preliminary round. Siwa gripped her wooden practice sword, visibly nervous. She stuttered, asking if she could really do this. I put a hand on her shoulder and told her to believe in me. The one who trained her. I guaranteed she'd gotten much tougher than before. She took a deep breath, promised to try her best, and stepped forward. The referee raised his flags, opening the preliminary rounds. Her opponent, Chongzam of the Blue Moon Sect, introduced himself with arrogance. He mocked her, assuming she'd never even swung a sword. She admitted she'd only trained for a month, which made him laugh and promise a harsh lesson. The referee shouted for them to begin. Sowa lunged forward, remembering my advice to use every ounce of her strength. With a thunderous burst of energy, she sent the arrogant fool flying across the arena, slamming into the dirt. The referee's jaw dropped. The crowd lost their minds, stunned the match ended that fast. I crossed my arms with a proud smirk. This was exactly why I told her to believe in herself. Siwa was declared the victor and cheered happily, waving her flag. I gave her a thumbs up. Over the past 2 weeks, I hadn't just taught her forms, I taught her the mindset. Most rookies her age hold back, afraid of really hurting their opponents. Sewa was built differently. She could unleash her full power without hesitation. She ran back to me beaming, shouting that she won. I chuckled, knowing she'd sail into the main round now. With her taken care of, I turned to scout the other fighters. The announcer called up Jingguang of the White Sword Sect next. He vaulted into the ring to cheers from the biased crowd. Without holding back, Jingguang attacked his opponent with a real blade, Forcing a pained grunt from the man crashed to the ground, stammering, begging him to wait. He surrendered, admitting defeat. Jingguang didn't care. He raised his sword again, a red aura radiating off him as the downed man panicked. With a flurry of vicious strikes, he battered the defenseless man. The referee finally jumped in, screaming for him to stop. The match was already over, but the damage was done. The opponent was left covered in a crimson mess. Jingguang clicked his tongue in annoyance as he was declared the winner. I watched him with disgust. Playing arrogant games when the skill gap was already that clear. Nasty piece of work. Soa rushed back to my side, thrilled she'd made the main round. She excitedly explained how easy it was once she gave it her all. I agreed. Her training was working. She shivered, complaining about a nasty, malicious aura nearby, and glanced nervously at Jingguang. She asked about him. I mentioned, casually, that she'd probably end up fighting that exact psycho in the main round. So Wang approached us with a fake, diplomatic smile. He offered a hollow apology for his disciples' violence. I brushed it off but told him he seriously needed to work on disciplining his men. His eyes narrowed as he remarked coldly how impressive it was for a young girl to make it this far. He put a heavy hand on Siowa's shoulder, warning her that her next opponent was top tier and her run would end here. He even offered her a spot in his own sect. I slapped his hand away, thanked him sarcastically for the praise, and added that his disciples weren't all that impressive anyway. His eye twitched with rage. He called over Wang Pal, a massive, muscular disciple who snapped to attention. So ordered him to guide us to our guest quarters. As Wang Pal nervously agreed, So shot me a dark look and told us to enjoy the rest of the event. He paused, adding a sinister threat. If you're able to, that is. I ignored his edgy villain monologue completely. My eyes were on Wang Pal. My system flagged him instantly. Age 21, incredible skeletal structure, serious martial arts talent. I just found my next recruit. As the giant awkwardly guided us down the hall, I couldn't help myself. I stepped right up behind him and started squeezing his massive shoulders. I gave him my most eager smile and praised his tall, muscular build. He stuttered a terrified thank you, clearly thinking I was a total weirdo. He let out a panicked yelp, shoved our door open, told us to rest well, and sprinted away like his life depended on it. I thanked him calmly as he fled. Siwa stomped her foot, demanding advice about her dangerous next opponent. I wasn't even listening. I just stared down the empty hall and asked how she'd feel about Wang Pal becoming her new fellow disciple. Her jaw dropped. What? I watched his junior, Jingguang, beat him mercilessly into the ground. The crowd buzzed that a junior had beaten someone 3 years older, while Jingguang stood there panting with a sadistic grin. Wang Pal stuttered in pain, begging him to stop. It was just training. Up on the balcony, their leader, So Wang, frowned, realizing he'd judged wrong. He muttered he never thought Wang Pal would be so weak underneath. He coldly ordered him to keep cleaning up after his fellow disciples forever, leaving Wang Pal crushed. This is exactly why you read the company reviews before joining a sect. Later that night, Wang Pal jolted awake in bed, gasping for air. He wiped the cold sweat from his face, whispering that it was just a nightmare. The door slid open. Jingguang walked in, armed, and Wang Pal nervously asked what brought him there. Jingguang said he wanted a warm-up before his duel. Wang Pal stammered that he wasn't feeling well, but Jingguang shot him a deadly glare and demanded the warm-up now. He said it would just be light while Wang Pal sat frozen in silence. The next day, the arena was packed as the announcer opened the semifinals. Before her match, I pulled Siowa aside and warned her that her opponent, Wu Gaiam, uses the tricky illusion sword style. It hides his real strikes but leaves big openings if he gets sloppy. I asked how she'd beat someone like that. She tapped her chin, suggesting she'd just try not to get tricked. I winked and told her there was a much easier way. As I whispered the strategy, the crowd murmured in suspense. I pointed at her with a confident smirk. Trust me, this'll beat him for sure. She gripped her wooden blade and agreed cheerfully. As she walked out, Yuryang came over, chuckling about how fast the semifinals had come around. He offered to treat us, but I arrogantly said I'd take him up on it after she won the grand finals tomorrow. He looked at me like I was insane. Down in the ring, Wu Gaiam pointed his sword, smugly praising Siwa for making it this far, but claiming her luck was running out. He grinned, boasting that everyone expected her to lose. Soa shouted right back that her sect leader believed in her victory. Wu Gaiam burst out laughing, calling her crazy just like me. The match began and she dashed forward like lightning, determined to win. Their weapons clashed hard, a sharp ring echoing across the courtyard. He praised her guts, quietly realizing her fundamentals were on a whole different level. Seowa's eyes widened as she strained against his momentum. He unleashed a sweeping strike, taunting her for backing down already. She blocked frantically, realizing she couldn't tell his feints from his real attacks. She focused, reminding herself to keep her guard at the center. Wu Gam smashed through her defense with a heavy impact. She grunted in pain, skidding backward across the stone floor. He smirked, genuinely surprised she'd managed to block it. Purple energy swirled around him as he admitted he'd underestimated her. He lunged forward, glaring, daring her to handle his next move. A flurry of dark purple illusions rained down like whips. She stared at the incoming energy, remembering my exact words. I'd explained that illusion sword users are weaker at close range, so they try to keep their distance. If you can reach your opponent with your sword, I'd told her, you'll win. Empowered by the advice, she lunged into the fray, shouting she was just getting started. She sprinted straight into his barrage of attacks. Wu Giam praised her speed, confident in his trap. As she wove through his heavy, dark energy strikes, he scoffed, swinging wildly, calling her movements too obvious. He landed a devastating blow across her chest, sending a shockwave through the air. Yang gasped in shock. I just watched with a calm, knowing smirk. He glanced at my relaxed expression, completely confused. Wu Giam raised his hand and claimed victory while Seowa lay collapsed at his feet. She panted heavily, face hidden, gripping her sword on the floor. He sighed dramatically. He'd had hopes for her, but it ended here. She muttered under her breath. It's not. She shot back to her feet, screaming, over yet. The kid is an absolute tank. Wu Gam lost his cool, shouting that she could barely stand. Ignoring his panic, she charged straight through his failing illusions. He held his hand out in disbelief, yelling that she had to be joking. She leaped into the air, fierce and determined. It ends now. Using the basic Azure Art's second form, she brought her wooden sword down and smashed through his defense. The final strike connected clean, ending the match. Yang threw his fist up, cheering her win, while I just smiled proudly. A sore loser from the White Sword Sect jumped in, accusing her of cheating, pretending to lose, then ambushing him. He threw a tantrum, asking how else Wu Jum could lose to a young girl. The arrogance of these guys is unreal. I stepped up with a cold glare and asked if his sect was always this rude about questioning another sect's leader. So Ye Wang stepped in, told his disciple to back off, and apologized for the rudeness. I accepted, casually. He gritted his teeth, blamed his disciple for assuming the girl had lost, and officially accepted the defeat. The announcer called Seowa's victory and the crowd went wild. She waved at me from the stage, yelling that she won. I praised her and reminded her about Yang's dinner promise. Amid the celebration, Wang Paul stood quietly in the crowd, until So Yo Wang leaned over his shoulder, dripping with malice. He ordered Wang Pal to poison my disciple's food that night, just enough paralysis poison to slow her down tomorrow. Then he coldly ordered Jing Guang to shatter her limbs and cripple her for good. This guy isn't just a bad boss, he's straight up evil. Wang Paul stammered that he couldn't do that and was met with a violent slap across the face. So Ye Wang grabbed him by the hair, called him a fool, and demanded he at least follow orders if he lacked talent. He struck him again, screaming that this was exactly why the other disciples had surpassed him. I stepped out from behind a pillar, remarking that he seemed to discipline his disciples pretty severely. So Ye Wang froze, eyes widening in panic. I'd heard everything. I gave him my sharp smirk. Did he really think he could plot against my student in broad daylight? I stepped right up to the White Sword Sect leader and called him out. I told him I didn't know the full situation, but wasn't he being a bit harsh on his own disciple? A leader's job is to guide, not abandon, I reminded him. He told me to mind my own business. I smirked. I had business with him. He looked surprised. With me? I demanded he hand Wang Pal over to my righteous heavens sect. Wang Pal looked stunned. Why me out of nowhere? I told him our sect's methods would suit him far better. He stammered, asking what I'd just said. So Ye Wang glared, accusing Wang Pal of already getting close to us. Wang Pal denied it desperately. To my surprise, the rival leader grinned sinisterly and accepted my proposal, but with a catch. He had a bet in mind. He claimed Seowa was talent wasted in my small sect. The nerve, trying to poach my only disciple right in front of me. He declared the winning sect of the final duel would take one disciple from the losing side. He tried to pass it off as pity for her. I gave him a cold look and agreed. Let it be so, I confirmed. Wang Pal panicked, telling his leader he'd taken the joke too far, pleading for him to stop. So Ye Wang just laughed, calling me an arrogant brat, looking forward to my only disciple vanishing. After he walked off, I grabbed Wang Pal by the collar. Why do you think I chose you? I told him to think carefully. There was a reason I let his leader take him away earlier. Meanwhile, my broker friend Yang was freaking out, asking if Suwa even knew about this insane wager. I laughed it off. She'd be pleased to get a junior brother. Besides, we just had to win, right? I walked over to Sewa and put a hand on her shoulder. I don't want to pressure you, but can you win this duel? She looked a bit nervous, admitting the odds were 50-50, like I'd said before. I smiled warmly. I trust you. Her eyes lit up with determination. Then a system chime rang out. Her seed of responsibility had sprouted. Across the arena, Soya Wang was warning Jingguang not to let his guard down. He ordered him to win at all costs so they wouldn't be humiliated any further. Wang Pal pulled Jingguang aside too, urging caution. Jingguang scoffed, accusing him of overrating her beginner's luck. The referee finally called the contestants forward. Jingguang sneered at Seiwa, praising her for making it this far but stating arrogantly her luck ended here. Sowa stood her ground calmly. No one knows the outcome until it's really over. The referee shouted for them to begin. Jingguang assumed her beginner energy meant she'd rely on sneaky tactics rather than a head-on clash, but Seiwa dashed forward instantly, her blade wrapped in a glowing aura. With a sharp hiss and a heavy thud, their swords clashed, catching him completely off guard. Jingguang gritted his teeth, shocked at how much stronger her inner energy was than he'd expected. It was only natural for him to assume she lacked energy, but he clearly didn't know the truth. Her extreme yin constitution meant her body naturally piled up massive amounts of inner energy. She pushed him back hard, aware she only had one shot to end this. She leaped into the air, aiming a powerful strike straight at him. Jingguang panicked and swung wildly to counter. With a heavy impact, she forced him onto the defensive. She pushed off, sliding backward across the arena floor. Jingguang glared, finally admitting her inner energy was above average. But he lunged again, yelling that she was still just a beginner. He unleashed a flurry of strikes, sending her flying backward. Seiwa blocked desperately, realizing just how strong his attacks really were. He rained down blows, declaring he'd finish her off in 10 seconds. But Seiwa's eyes burned with resolve. She wasn't losing like this. The system chimed wildly. Her responsibility disposition fully activated. She endured another massive shockwave from his blade. The system confirmed her diligence and adversity traits had also activated, fusing all three together. Her heartbeat echoed in her ears as everything slowed down. A new unique trait manifested: clear mind. Her eyes widened as her senses sharpened to an impossible degree. The system said that under extreme stress, her reasoning and judgment were now sharply improved. A mid-battle software update, basically. She let out a fierce battle cry, pushing back against his assault. Their wooden swords collided with a resounding crack. Jingguang gathered a dark, terrifying aura around his blade, readying a lethal strike. He praised her for holding out, then asked arrogantly if she could take this final blow. Soa's expression locked into absolute focus. He swung down with everything he had, screaming that it was over. I leaped out of my seat, screaming her name. In that split second, she remembered my words. I trust you. A thunderous explosion erupted at the center of the ring, sending a shockwave into the sky. Jingguang was sent hurtling backward through the air like a rag doll. Soya Wang and I watched, stunned, as the dust settled. Even Wang Pal trembled, realizing she'd just used the cold yin energy art. Her hands glowed with a chilling blue aura. She landed the basic Asura art's third technique, single point, perfectly. She exhaled softly, mentioning playfully that it was a little chilly. I let out a huge sigh of relief as Jingguang collapsed to the ground. The referee ran forward, yelling at me not to climb into the ring. I pointed at the unconscious Jingguang and shouted back, couldn't he see the outcome was already decided? The referee stared at the down fighter, at a total loss for words. He finally raised his voice and declared the winner, the Righteous Heaven Sect's Seiwa. The crowd went wild. I turned to Wang Pal with a huge grin while Seiwa cheered behind me. Soya Wang was shaking with rage, his face red. His white sword sect had just become a complete laughingstock. Sitting on the arena floor after her hard-fought win, Soawa looked up at me, completely worn out. Sect leader, she whispered. I kept my promise. She smiled brightly as I helped her up. I looked at her with real pride. Suwa. The crowd erupted. You fought well. Congratulations. Yang cheered from the stands. I held her up proudly and told the referee to announce it. He raised our arms high. The winner of the White Sword Martial Contest is the Righteous Heaven Sect's Seiwa. She beamed with joy, but I wasn't done. I stepped forward, projecting my voice to the crowd. I, the Righteous Heaven Sect leader, would like to say something. 1 month from now, our sect's establishment ceremony will be held. We ask for everyone's attendance, I announced cheerfully. So Yo Wang, that arrogant White Sword Sect leader, lost it. Righteous Heaven Sect leader, are you seriously using the White Sword Sect for your own ceremony? Not to mention you've been hiding the cold yin energy art this whole time, he roared, pulling out hidden blades. How dare you deceive me? With a sharp thud, someone grabbed his wrist mid-attack. It was Wang Pal. Yuang snarled, demanding what he was doing, but Wang Pal stood his ground. Sect leader, you're the one who should maintain your dignity. Yu Wang's eyes lit with malice as a dark purple aura exploded around him. "So you're defending the righteous heavens sect already? Traitors are executed immediately," he screamed, aiming a lethal strike at his own disciple. With a thunderous boom, a surge of dark energy erupted. I stepped in and blocked the blow with my scabbard easily. "What is the meaning of this white sword sect leader? Wang Pao is now a disciple of the righteous heavens sect," I said coldly. "Treat him with respect." I gripped his wrist like a vise. "If you're dissatisfied with the result of the match, I'll face you directly." I squeezed hard. He let out a choked groan as the blade slipped from his trembling fingers. He glared at me, sweating, humiliated, then yanked his arm back. "Curse it, do as you please." Wang Pao called out to him softly, but Yo Wang snapped, "I can't stand to look at you. Get out of my sight." He turned back to me, face twisted in fury. "Righteous Heaven sect leader, I will never forget how you humiliated me today." Wang Pao looked down, defeated. "That's not it. It's just, can someone like me, with no talent, really start over?" I put a hand on his broad shoulder. "You're already a fine martial artist. I'll prove it myself." He stood there, recalling all the times his former master had called him a half-witted idiot only good for physical labor. Tears welled up in his eyes as he clenched his fists. "Thank you. I'll work hard from now on." The system confirmed it. Wang Pao had officially become my second disciple. 2 weeks later, back at our newly acquired manor, Wang Pao was sweating, holding a low, grueling horse stance. He nervously asked Siwa if they'd ever do anything besides horse stance training. She smacked his back, laughing. "Senior sister, you say?" She stood over him like a drill sergeant. "The sect leader always says to value the basics." He just sighed in defeat. "Don't rush it," she lectured. "Keep working hard and you can be like me someday." The irony, 2 months of training and she's already acting like a grandmaster to a guy with 8 years of experience. He chuckled awkwardly, bragging he was confident with physical work. She instantly fired back. "Go fetch the water alone then." "Pardon?" he stammered, caught completely off guard. I watched them from a distance, pulling up his system profile. Excellent physique, exceptional fundamentals, but painfully low energy sense. The kids were using his massive arms as a playground swing while he held his stance. I smirked. My judgment was correct, as expected. His real talent was unshaken focus and the stamina to back it up. Even with Seiwu hanging off his back, it was nothing to him. First Siowa, now Wang Pao. I really do have an eye for talent. Yuri Yang walked up with a stack of scrolls, asking how the ceremony preparations were going. I thanked him. Everything was running smoothly. "Don't mind me, I'm just an investor." He laughed, noting the martial contest publicity had brought in a flood of attendance letters. His expression dropped as he unrolled a specific scroll. "However, among them is an order from the Murim Alliance." I stared at the green parchment, silent. As I read it, my inner energy flared uncontrollably, blue electricity crackling around my hand. The Beckley clan. The scroll ignited in my grip. "They filed a plagiarism review over their basic arts?" I muttered in disbelief. Yuri Yang was shocked. It had been 15 years since I left them, not very elder-like of them. I scoffed, seeing through their cowardly game. "No, it's exactly like them. Strike when your opponent's off guard." Curse it. My martial arts were the product of my own 15 years of enlightenment, not a shred of the Beckley clan's arts in them. But if the Murim Alliance's inspector blindly sided with the Beckley clan, a guilty ruling would be almost impossible to avoid. If I lost, I'd be barred from passing down my own arts, plus owe them a massive fee. And I refused to let anyone touch my money. Even if I tried again later, the review would just be stricter next time. I needed 0 grounds for their accusation, meaning I had to thoroughly check other sects' basic martial arts too. Stroking my chin, a new problem hit me. Where was I supposed to get those basic arts right now? Wang Pao burst through the door, panicked, Sowa trying to hold him back. "Sect leader!" Startled, I asked what was wrong. "We had visitors," he yelled. Out in the courtyard, a massive guy with a club on his shoulder was mocking me as a miser for buying the whole manor. The girl beside him warned him not to touch anything or she'd end him. I stepped out to meet them, asking, carefully, who they were. "It's been a while, Heavenly Squad Captain," she smiled. The system labeled them Heavenly Squad Group Leader Zheng Ha and member Namgung Wu. "Or should we call you the Righteous Heavens Sect Leader now?" she teased. Seeing my old comrades lifted my mood instantly and I burst out laughing. A grin spread across my face as a plan formed. This unexpected visit could turn the whole situation around. Back in the office, Yuri Yang was stressing over the Beckley clan's influence. He muttered that the Murim Alliance would likely side with them, given their deep ties. He even wondered if he should back out of our partnership, but he steeled his resolve. No need to hesitate, even if this trial was on a whole different level than the White Sword sect. Gayam. he called sharply to his assistant. I'll be drafting a letter. Deliver it. When Gayam asked where to, Yuryong picked up his brush with a wicked smirk. If we fear their influence, we match it by raising the stakes. Let's bring in the unorthodox alliance too, he declared, the silhouette of a bearded warlord looming in his mind. This simple ceremony was about to turn into a political war zone. Back at my old home, the Beckley clan, my father, Patriarch Beckley Gang, wasn't too thrilled with his subordinate. He scolded the outer hall leader, Beckley Changsung, asking why he'd ordered a plagiarism investigation against my not yet opened sect. Changsung said it was just my father's personal call not to provoke me. He pointed out boldly that my older brother was too soft and my sister too hasty. My father sipped his tea, noting the clan had no rule against a female heir taking over. Changsung slammed his fist down, demanding to know why he'd let me leave the clan. He practically shouted about how gifted and brilliant I was. Nice to know I had at least one fanboy back there. Then his tone shifted. They had to remind me of my place. He declared it was the Elder Council's will to force me back to my roots. My father slammed his cup down, agreeing coldly, muttering something about adversity being necessary for my growth. He ordered Changsung to go teach me I'd always be under the clan's thumb. Toxic parenting. Textbook. Changsung bowed hard, swearing to drag me back personally. Fast forward to D-Day, the official establishment ceremony of my righteous heaven sect. Changsung marched toward my estate with a Murim Alliance inspector still ranting about bringing me back. The inspector nervously asked why he was so obsessed with me. Changsung just smirked. He claimed that if I'd stayed, I'd have become the greatest swordmaster of this generation. He admitted that even though I'd abandoned them, the clan still needed my talent. Staring at the crowd gathered at my gates, he wondered how I'd answer his little challenge. A loud drum echoed, signaling the gates to open. I stood at the top of the stairs, looking down at the sea of people. My system warned me my heart rate was spiking and suggested deep breaths. Thanks, very helpful. I smiled confidently, telling my racing heart to quiet down. With a powerful push, I leaped high into the air, landing dead center in the arena with a shockwave. The force of the landing sent a blast of wind that nearly knocked the guests over. Even Changsung had to brace himself against it. I stood tall and planted the flag of the Righteous Heaven sect firmly into the ground. I welcomed the crowd and introduced myself as sect leader, but added that before we celebrated, there was some trash we needed to take out first. I announced to everyone that my sect had been accused of plagiarizing the Beckley clan's martial arts. The crowd gasped, muttering at the audacity of dropping a bombshell like that at an opening ceremony. Some fools started whispering, wondering if I was actually admitting to the crime. One sketchy guy in the crowd just laughed, loving the drama. Changsung smirked, arrogant as ever, thinking I was surrendering. He wondered what exactly I was plotting. I shot him a knowing smirk. Then I pointed straight at them, calling the Murim Alliance's inspection team forward. Changsung stepped confidently into the ring, greeting me while the crowd buzzed. Recognizing him as the famous Moonsword, he smugly asked my intentions for calling him out. I threw my arms wide and declared I wanted a fully public plagiarism verification right here. Changsung lost his cool, shouting that verifications are supposed to stay private until a consensus is reached. Even his own inspector panicked, reminding him they were here to mediate, not publicly condemn me. This was exactly my trap. With this many eyes on us, the Murim Alliance couldn't afford to play favorites. I politely asked to begin. Changsung practically growled his permission. I drew my sword, fell into a smooth stance, and announced I'd demonstrate the Azure arts. Channeling my energy, I unleashed a blindingly fast downward slash. The first technique, heaven, earth, and man. A wave of air erupted as my blade cut through the space between us. The inspector stroked his mustache, noting how heavily my strike relied on those three foundational principles. As he started to agree it looked suspicious, I cut in. I smirked, dropping the bombshell that it also borrowed from the Namgung clan's techniques. Then I admitted, confidently, that 23 of our basic arts were plagiarized from various other sects. The inspector lost it, stammering that the claim was absurd. I stared him down. What was so absurd when no one was here to back up my claim? Just then, a hand shot up from the crowd with a cheerful shout. The crowd parted in fear as Namgung Wu, the burly little demon of the Namgung clan, stepped forward. Right beside him was my old colleague Jung Ha, waving enthusiastically, looking gorgeous in that traditional dress. The inspector sweated bullets, asking why the heavenly squad was here. Jung Ha lied sweetly that they were just passing by to visit their old captain. Namgung Wu stepped up, swinging his massive blade to show show that their own boundless art used the exact same heaven, earth, and man principles. Jung-ha agreed, pulling out a wooden box and shoving it toward a stunned Shang Tsung. She popped it open to reveal a stack of confirmation letters from various sects. With a sharp glare, she asked if the Beckley clan's logic meant every sect in Murim was guilty of plagiarizing each other. Chang Tsung read the papers, face turning pale, calling it nonsense. Namgung Wu threw his own words back at him, pointing out it was his exact argument. He glared at the trembling inspector, asking if the Murim Alliance was staging a biased review. For the final nail, they pulled out an official letter from my old subordinate Captain Moyong Hyun, confirming the Beckley clan's own arts overlapped with everyone else's. Chang Tsung was so furious the papers flew out of his trembling hands. I just smiled. The trap had sprung perfectly. He gritted his teeth, screaming my name in defeat. "Checkmate, uncle." The panicking Murim Alliance inspector stuttered, asking how I could have possibly verified all these martial arts by hand. Guessing I must have written to every sect myself, I smiled. I'd said everything I needed to. Now it was time for the Moon Sword to answer. I pressed him. If he admitted his clan's arts were entangled in plagiarism disputes with 23 other sects, would he really risk forcing this issue? Uncle Chang Song gripped his hilt. With a sharp hiss, he lunged at me. Jung-ha and the inspector gasped. From behind his heavy blade, my uncle declared this was a personal matter. Our swords locked. He yelled, asking if I still couldn't let go of the past, claiming I was meant to be the pillar leading the Beckley clan. I pushed back hard. "You're the one who can't let go. You still resent the clan?" He roared over the clashing steel, asking if it was because they never avenged my mother, admitting he understood my anger at their failure to protect her. Then he surged forward, screaming that if I meant to destroy our clan over it, he'd stop me. A thunderous explosion sent shockwaves across the courtyard as our attacks collided. My uncle skidded backward, grunting in pain. I sheathed my sword and said calmly that I wouldn't deny my own bloodline. It'd be a lie to say I felt no resentment, I admitted, but I'd already let most of it go. He demanded, furiously, why I wouldn't come back. I looked him in the eye. As a sect leader, I had to grow stronger through my own will. I wasn't that angry kid anymore. He warned me. How long could a small sect like mine last if the main house pressured it? I smirked. I was ready to face that, same as always. His eyes widened. Next thing I knew, he was sitting on the ground, exhausted, ignoring my protest to keep sparring. He formally announced as Outer Hall leader that our Righteous Heavens sect hadn't plagiarized a thing. Then, breaking protocol, he smiled as my uncle and asked for a little more time. The truth would come out eventually. With a soft chuckle, he hoisted his massive sword onto his shoulder. He declared his decision, proudly, in the name of the Moon Sword, to everyone present. The Righteous Heavens sect did not plagiarize the Beckley clan's martial arts. The crowd erupted into cheers. A shadowy figure in the crowd laughed, noting the old man had chosen his disciple well. Though I hadn't even needed the help, Guy Wool, standing beside him, told him to watch his tone. The shadowy man ignored her, chuckling that my entire manor was acting like a single divine artifact. If only they knew this divine artifact was just a cursed haunted house I bought at a steep discount. Then the unorthodox alliance leader revealed himself fully, grinning, admitting I was far more interesting than he expected. With a swirl of dark aura, he vanished, saying he'd head out first. Guy Wool watched him disappear, narrowing her cyan eyes. She confirmed quietly to herself he was indeed my very first trading partner. A few days later, back at our newly established Righteous Heavens sect, Soa looked shocked. 3 straight days and not a single applicant. Wang Pal was miserably sweeping the empty courtyard. The system alerted me my heart rate was unstable. Trying to act cool, I accidentally snapped my brush in half while telling them not to sweat the small stuff. Sewa sighed. We needed to build trust in the community naturally if we wanted recruits. She joked that maybe Wang Pal should just go recruit on the streets. Wang Pal panicked at the thought. I handed them a fresh scroll and told them to deliver it to the Hawun merchant group instead. Sowa peeked over, curious, asking what I was writing. I smirked. My foolproof method for recruiting disciples. Meanwhile, over at the Murim Alliance military department, well, that's all for today. I hope you enjoyed this manhwa recap, and if you do, please give it a big like and yeah, don't forget to subscribe my channel. Bye.